so-called independence, I don't want to appear to be negative, but since 60 years ago when we reflect, we would say, is Uganda really independent? In fact, right now, we are even being swallowed and consumed by so many countries, to the extent that we are about even to lose the land, which is the most important item that as Ugandans would be holding. So, but I'm not going into those details. But as far as I'm concerned, me, independence means freedom. Freedom to conduct your affairs, freedom to do as you want to do as a nation, not subjected to conditionalities which we are subjected to because of what we call our poverty, because of selling our land into debt, into we are bondaged. In fact, we could be more bondaged right now than at independence, because I don't think that at independence Uganda owed so much trillions of money to these colonizers. Right now, the colonizers may have gone, but we are colonized by them in terms of our economy, in terms of finances, in terms of politics, in terms of we could be even more colonized and less independent than we were when we received independence at 1962. Nevertheless, let's go into the matter. To me, what did independence mean to our forefathers? Because before Uganda was formed into a nation, it was colonized. We did not become Uganda. We didn't sit and become Uganda. We were still advancing in terms of expansion. Different kingdoms, different societies, different tribes were advancing, uniting, conquering one another. And down the road, we get people who colonized us. You remember the scramble for Africa. So the foreigners, the rich people, those colonizers were scrambling for Africa. And what were they scrambling for? Scrambling to colonize us and take over our resources and rule us as just poor people, and use our resources and rule us the way they wanted to rule us. And of course, they did manage to come and colonize many of African countries. Some of them so suffered so much. The only difference which I see in Uganda is that when they colonized us, they called us a protectorate. In other words, that they are protecting us. And you know, the Ugandans actually were organizing themselves in such a way. They were also powerful, they were coming together. And when they saw the force with which they came to colonize us, they saw that they could be defeated. They termed us into a protectorate, that they are protecting us. We were not like Kenya next door, not like South Africa there, but they said they are protecting us. And in form of that protection, of course, they took our resource, they captured us, they turned us into a protectorate which was under the leadership of the kingdom, the queen which has just passed away. Imagine the queen being the ruler of Uganda, and you put there the governors which were ruling us and that kind of thing. And of course, these things did not please our forefathers. I won't list them, time is not there. You have all known all these people who fought for our independence, including the late Musazi, including, they are there. You go and read, I'm not here to read for you. But at least when I was making the 1995 Constitution, we had a lot of reading and research, which I tell you, repeat it now. But if you want, you can go and read the Odochi report. The Odochi report. Before Odochi report, there was also which report, which was leading to the Constitution of Independence. You need to go and read yourselves. I'm not going to be your reader, but I want to tell you that all this history is written down. Now, this struggle is for Uganda's independence. They struggled, of course, they pressurized the colonizers, and time had come also. The colonizers noticed that unless we let go, we cannot continue because of the pressure that was going on. But then within this protectorate, they also designed how they are going to to give us independence, as if they were giving us. Imagine, we are supposed to get our independence, but they were giving us, as a protectorate, they were giving us independence. Now, that brings me to the constitution. You Ugandans, as you trace the journey of constitution making in Uganda, you need to know what a constitution is. Me, I simply define a constitution in simple terms for every Ugandan to understand. A nation needs to be built. You build a nation. And therefore, I want to compare building a nation as building a house. When you are going to build a house, you first make a foundation. And in fact, Jesus Christ says it, that a wise man went to build a house and built it on a rock. When the rain came and blew and the wind, it could not fall. But a foolish man went and built it on a sand. And when the rain came and whatever the wind, the house did what? Did fall. So the strength of the nation will depend on the foundation, on the strength of the foundation on which you build it. Therefore, a constitution is a foundation upon which you build the nation. And therefore, the strength of that structure will depend on the strength of the foundation on which you build it. Now, at independence, there had to be a constitution, because the nations which were there then were just amalgamation of these nations under the rulership of the queen. And since we had to get our own rulership, we had to start building our own country. And therefore, the 1962 Constitution called it a foundation on which Uganda as a nation was to be built. That's why you see, that is the first time Uganda came to exist as a nation. That's when the flag of the colonialists came down and the flag of Uganda was designed and the national anthem were constituted and the what do you call it, our motto, all these things were done at that time when the constitution making was made to make a Uganda, to start Uganda as a foundation. I want to say that the constitution of Uganda was not even made here. You can imagine you want to start a building, but you start it from elsewhere. You see, it was made elsewhere in UK and Lancaster, and they chose certain people, the queens, the kings, the whatever. Queens could not talk, but the chiefs, the advisors, I think if you, the late Honorable Ibingira, Grace Ibingira, the late Honorable John Kazora, not this commander here. They were many. They were many, I can't remember them. But they chose them and took them to Lancaster to put a stamp. I imagine it was to put a stamp on how those colonizers wanted Uganda to be. They actually were running away. Ugandans want to be independent, and therefore whatever came, just craft a foundation. They crafted a foundation with grass, with maybe grass, with some stones, with some trees, some branches of trees, and they crafted it and said, yes, this is the foundation where Uganda is going to be built. And so that foundation, with those poor materials, and therefore that foundation was bound not to last even anything, because they left so many things unsolved. They say now we were not a republic. I think we were federal. They gave us federal. And some people who didn't want kingdom, like the Bachiga, they said, for us, how can you give us kingdom? Those kingdoms which were already they established, like Ankole, Toro, Bunyoro, and Uganda. I think those were already established kingdoms, therefore they said those will be kingdoms. Now, some of the tribes here were led under chiefs. So those chiefs, I think, were elevated to be chieftainship. Anyway, it was just a foundation like built like the foolish man who built on the sand according to the word of God. And so it was bound not to succeed because it was bound not to be a right foundation for Uganda to build on. Because you see, they made president. They made Kabaka of Uganda, who was a king of Uganda. He was the president of the country. And then Milton Obote, who was fighting within his UPC, he was made the prime minister of Uganda. Now, who had more powers was not clear. So who would have powers, the Kabaka or the Obote? And so there was, it was a marriage of convenience. And by the way, for the Kabaka to become the president, there was this marriage of convenience where I think they wanted to defeat DP, and therefore Kabaka Yeka in Uganda, they belonged to Kabaka Yeka, they wanted Kabaka Yeka. Now nobody got majority, so the Kabaka Yeka had to enter into a marriage of convenience, a self-centered marriage of convenience with UPC, and then they say, okay. So they began with the deceit. You see, the Bazungu wanted to go. We want you to go. You go and get your independence. And then we were not ready on how we get this independent, building the foundation. And those are some of the things that start right from the beginning. And they didn't resolve the problem of, there were a number of issues which were not sorted, like the problem of the lost counties. I want to go into this history since we're on the constitution, because the other people, the Banyoro, Batoro, you know, Baganda were used to go and defeat the Banyoro, and then of course the colonizers paid the gift of the Baganda land to Banyoro land to Baganda. So all those things, then they say, now you are independent. And then also, because they wanted independence, no more delay, okay. The issue was, when we reach home, we shall sort it out. Unfortunately, before they even sat down to sort it out, imagine 1964, already there was a problem. What was it? Was it military? What do they call it? Military. The word has left my head. Military mutiny. You say this was even in Kenya, in Tanzania, and in Uganda. And by the way these other three countries sorted out the problem of army, militarism, has continued to determine the nation's direction. You know, in Tanzania, I think over they dissolved the army. In Kenya, I can't remember now, but they sorted it also in a way. In Uganda, Obote was so scared because he didn't have the majority in the country. What did he do? He promoted the army. And therefore, they got a leeway. They say, oh, so whenever we can shake, they will do what we want. They surrendered. The political leadership surrendered to who? To the army. And that's when Amin took over, I had already known that, hey, when I raise, they can succumb to me. So these things, you need to read them. Because when I was writing the Constitution of Uganda, we read all these things and we came to know. So 1966, Kabaka and Obote fell out. They had to, they fought because they couldn't. Kabaka told Obote, you president, leave my kingdom, this is my land, and me, Obote, I'm the prime minister of this land. You can go and find out the details of their quarrels. But then by 1960, the other one was, mutiny, yes. I think I told you military mutiny, which was the problem was solved differently in the region, and how they solved determined how we move. That's why you can't find Tanzania being overthrown by army, you can't find Kenya being overthrown by army, but with Uganda it is overthrow, 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 because the political leadership was so shaken, was not majority supported, did not have the confidence to lead this nation because of the marriage of convenience originating from the way they made their constitution. The foundation was 66, the foundation collapses. You hear and talk of the constitution. Kabaka ran away, they almost killed him, they invaded his rubiri, and he ran away and died in exile. And Obote remained here, said, now I must catch power because this thing is serious. And so what did he do? He got this constitution. Of course, once the Kabaka left, there had to be something, because if the president has run away and he had certain powers, now the prime minister, you are alone here. So they went inside their office, I don't know where, they crafted another hopeless constitution which they called pigeonhole constitution, to enable Obote to take power, because since he was not the president, he was not going to take power without, they had to craft a constitution, because like a constitution is the foundation, and this was like now a new Uganda now. So they crafted that constitution. I can't tell you what was there, but they put it in the pigeonhole, and when the then members of parliament came to the house, they said, well, there is a constitution. I think they read all these things, changes which they had made, and they said, you'll find their constitution in your pigeonhole. And they supported it before they read it. Yeah, so that is the pigeonhole constitution you hear of. But of course now, with this new thing, I mean, Obote had to act very quickly and secure another sort of better governance of Uganda, which was not guaranteed by those constitution. And that they sat, those members of parliament, now when reached there, now that is when they came out with what? Which other constitution? The Republican Constitution, because he said, these kingdoms are no good. Let us make a republic, let us overthrow the kingdoms, become a republic, concentrate powers in my hands, so that we move on. So as far as I'm telling you now, I finished those constitutions, and I would call them the constitutions, the man who built on the sand. So they were on the sand. Not many Ugandans participated in making them. And you know, when you are building a house, even if you are the head of the household, you don't build it alone. Your wife, your children, they say, now where do we put the sand? You get a plan properly, architectures, they come and advise, and you don't just go and build a house alone. So these constitutions, as I have told them to you, they were built wrongly, and therefore Uganda could not stand firm on these constitutions. In fact, let me tell you, when Obote came, he sort of saw when the foundation has cracked, this wall has fallen, stone is gone, but you make. You shape the stones and say, let's continue building this house on these kind of loopholes, broken structures, and so on. Now, in the meantime, Amin comes. When Amin came, he said, for him, he didn't bother building Uganda on the constitution, on this foreign structure, foreign foundation. He just went at the side and built it on nothing. So for him, he said, I'm not continuing with Uganda on this broken structure, foundation, and so on. Let me now build my own Uganda. So he went, he didn't even dig what? There was no foundation dug. He just started and said, every single day there will be a stone, every single day over there will be whatever decrees which he was pronouncing. Today you put sand, tomorrow you can put the brick. The other day there is stone. The other day there is water. On another day there is a stone. And that's how it all went. So no foundation, no nothing. And so all those went, of course, when Obote came back, eh, he went to the other, I think, the foundation which was left, not touch. And actually he declared, he said, we are going to begin where we started. We are going to start where we stopped, so the broken foundation. So he went and started from there, and for those next 5 years, it broke. So by the time Seven came, it was just no foundation at all. And no house, there was no house. Stones had fallen there, the bricks there. But when Seven came also, he said, he sort of proclamation, this decree, put stone here, starting on Obote's foundation. He said, let's start on this one. He brought some stones also, some cement, some what. But he said, in the meantime, let us build a real foundation for the nation. And I was very privileged to be a party to the builders of that foundation, because I was one of the 21 member commission who were selected, I think in 1988 actually. Me, I joined in 89, but towards the end of 1988, the Dutch Commission was established to really work out, build a real foundation on which the new Uganda, the new real independent Uganda would be built. And so I think in 1989, when the constitution had started, it had 21 members, out of whom 2 were women. The first women were actually the Honorable Gertrude Rubega, who was at one time a minister for women in development in President's office, was the first one to go there with Mary Maitum. Now in 1989 we extended parliament. The NRC was extended through elections, and that's when one of the stones that were put in the law, in the constitution, was that each district should have a woman representative. The principle of affirmative action was put there also as a piece of stone in the then constitution, and so we held elections where district women representatives were elected. And in February 1989, elections were held, and Gertrude Rubega, who was elected as a member of parliament for Masaka, was now appointed as the Minister for Gender, for Women in Development. And I think Mpanga, who was holding that position, was transferred to be the Minister for Education, if I remember properly. And so that's when I was now, as a woman member of parliament from Barara, was appointed to replace Rubega on the Constitutional Commission. So I joined this commission in February, I think around February 1989, after my election as a member of parliament. The members of the Constitutional Commission were appointed by the president, but they were reflective of all shades of opinion. Or different tribes, different professions, different parties. Me, I was there as an individual. By then, we were all called NRIM. We were all conscripted into a movement called NRIM, whether you are DP, UPC, or what. But when it came to appointment of people to represent, to be on the commission, they appointed even people, DP, UPC, non-partisan, women, men. There was also army. So we were all a cross-section of people. And we were given a task to construct a constitution on which a new Uganda would be built. And so for us, When we sat there as people who had lived in Uganda and seen all these, and some of us were lawyers, distinguished lawyers of integrity, I want to say that every person who was on that constitution was a person of integrity. I can say that clearly. Very well qualified, qualifications in academic terms, qualifications in experience, in living in Uganda, having seen all this. Some of them had experienced them as participants in the processes of leadership, like Cuthbert Obwango. Some of us were new, had not come to leadership, but it was a distinguished committee, the Professor Timu, a medical person. I can't remember all of them, but they were all distinguished people of integrity and experience in Ugandan affairs. We sat down with our task to make sure that we put a foundation now which will not be questionable, which will be on the rock, on which will be the rock on which we build Uganda. We were the one who determined how we are going to do it. And you need to read the Odochi report. For the first time, Ugandans, as a community of Ugandans, participated in the making of the Uganda Constitution. You can ask me how. First of all, we first sat on our table and educated ourselves, first knew one another. To know one another, because we didn't know one another. To know one another, see how we can freely, we shared experience. I remember each of us was asked to make a presentation of their own choice. You present to the commission, they ask you questions, and you respond. And by so doing, we were educating one another, learning one another. And when they question, we gauge your mood. If we shoot a question at you, how have you responded? And so we educated ourselves, like, like almost a whole month or even 3 months, learning one another, learning our qualities, learning our values, learning and how we shall come to do this thing. So we first united ourselves. We united ourselves on our mission. And because of unity on this mission, we determined as to how we are going to do this exercise to involve all Ugandans. We started with the district seminars to tell people a constitution. And what is a constitution? And why do we need one? Those were the basic questions. What is a constitution? What does it contain? And why do we need one? We went everywhere saying this. And we asked Ugandans, therefore, what subjects, what topics, what do you want covered in this constitution? And Ugandans responded. And they sent in the questions, we debated. So when we came back from there, we now structured, I think, the training materials on which topics, subjects we are going to discuss. So we came out with a training manual where we are now going to train Ugandans everywhere. So we sub-counties, we reached all civil society organizations, professional organizations. We reached almost everywhere and reached every person. As if that was not enough. When it came to collecting views, we were collecting views from people who were already educated about what a constitution is and what it should contain. And I want to tell you that the things these people gave us are the things we eventually drafted the constitution on. And so even those people who did not talk, whom we didn't reach, everybody was allowed to write a memoranda, to write your points, even in your local language, because we were there. We had interpreters. We have a fully fledged secretariat constituted by all these other people who could interpret for us. And anybody who would call us, if you call, we are here, the sub-count of wherever we didn't get the information properly, at least a commissioner would be sent there. This exercise, the exercise of educating the people, correcting their views, writing the constitution took us good 4 years. 4 years we drafted this draft report. One thing I want to clearly give out there without getting into other subjects is this whole subject of succession, peaceful handing over of power in Uganda. The very, very people of Uganda, the public, are the ones, the first day we visited the district, when we were saying what a constitution is and what it contains and why we need one, they are the people who said, but our main challenge in this Uganda and why we have built Uganda is because of those leaders who do not want to leave power peacefully. They brought it themselves. And we said, okay, so what do you want? How do we solve that? They said, you know what? We can limit the term, the time. Of course, they didn't know the word term, but we can limit the time, the period for which these presidents will lead us. We said, so what do you want? They said, if he can lead us for 2 terms of 5 years. First term, he lead us well or badly. Nevertheless, we give him or her another 5 years. They said by these 5 years, he will have done what is enough and things might have changed. We would need another person or new other ideas. So we said, but what if you still want him after 5 years? You still want the same president? They said, let us tell you, we would rather have this president retire when we still want him, so that he can go home and stay here and advise other leaders, die out of this country. Those were Ugandans. It was not our views. The other question we asked them, so should we also limit the term for the members of parliament? They said, no. Members of parliament, why should we limit them? We remove them ourselves because we have powers to remove them. They said we don't have powers to remove a president who has military force and has a lot of money. These were Ugandans, that the president is the one who has money, who has the army, so we cannot remove them with our vote. But these individuals, we remove them. They said the reason why we don't want the members of parliament not to be time limited is because some of our areas we do not have competent, educated people to lead us. And if you want to know, by the way, this constitution has really been spoiled because the members, they told us, the public said that the minimum qualification, I wish we had accepted that. I blame myself as the commissioners because they said the minimum qualification should be graduate. Everybody in Uganda said that. And they said in some of our areas we may not have that kind of people. So why should we limit our good member of parliament who is serving us? We only want to limit the president who refuses to leave power, and yet we have no authority to remove him. So it is we, the commission, when we looked at the whole of Uganda, and we are making a constitution where we should not have discrimination. And we said, but there is no, by then there was no free education. We say we don't have free universal education. Now, if we limit the people of becoming a parliament to be university holders, degree holders, many areas may not have such kind of person. So we shall be discriminating against them. So we looked for a middle position. We said, since they want a graduate, if we set a minimum of HSC, we shall hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Those people, they will choose a graduate. They will do what they mean. What they were saying, they will mean it. And if they don't have a graduate, they will choose an HSC person. So that is one thing actually we put, which was not from those people. But we are balancing. Of course, you have to balance also for the good of the nation. And so, what am I saying here? Ugandan constitution was participatory made first beginning with the draft. Now, it is the very, very people who told us that they wanted a constituent assembly. Originally, the law, the stoning the Obote Museveni constitution, which he had inherited, was that the constitution would be adopted by the NRC together with the Army Council. That was the original idea. The people of Uganda asked, but we are giving you our ideas. Who is going to discuss them and pass them? We said, what do you want? They said, now that we know what a constitution is. When we elected the NRC members, we didn't know what a constitution is. Now that we know it, we would like to elect our own representatives who are going there to give our views, because we want them to give the views which we now have. We want them to go and endorse what we told you. Okay? So that's when we proposed to the NRC that actually the people want a constituent assembly. So that's when, after submitting the draft to President Museveni, eventually there was election, national elections for the constituent assembly delegates. And to know that the people were serious, when I went for elections in Mbarara, they said, oh, Matembe is the one who made our constitution. He knows our ideas. He knows what we want. They elected me. They told others, you know where you don't know what is there. She is the one. And indeed, when I went there, I really did my best. Some of us who were in the CA, some of them, who did not contest, appointed them. Like, I remember Bakagwa. I remember some people, like I think our secretary, our former secretary, who was Father Waligo. I think he was in CA, if I'm not wrong. So some of us, about 5 people, who were the assembly, I mean in commission, were in CA. And many times we are guiding, we are explaining as to why we have put a certain issue there. So in the end, and these constituent assembly delegates, every time there was like a controversial issue, we would go back to our constituency, call our people and discuss with them. And what they would say, we would come with it and bring it for debate. And so eventually the constitution was passed. By the way, there were very few contentious issues, like the federal question, not be the Baganda, for instance, were not happy with it, and the multi-party. You remember the people of Uganda, when it came to political system. Actually, generally, many of them, I'm telling you the truth, they said, for now, let us continue to be within the movement as we build our nation, because the movement has brought us together and we are building. Now, some people were saying that let us go to multi-party. Others were saying let us stay in the movement forever. When we looked at all these things, we said, why don't we strike a balance between all these? Because the movement cannot just say continue. What if it changes and things are not going well? And then all the sizable people, so which was saying we go into multi-party. And then others were saying, let us go to multi-party immediately. We said, now, let us take a decision that since the majority want the movement, let us propose in the constitution that for now, for the next 5 years, let it be the movement. But after that, let there be a referendum to see, because we will not call people again to the constitution. We said let there be a referendum to see whether people still want to continue with the movement or go to multi-party. And that's what we put. It didn't come straight from the people. That one is like the qualifications. It came from us. I think the other thing also which we considered was the Uganda people wanted federal. All they actually wanted federal. But we could not say Uganda should go into federal. We saw whom would Uganda be federating with, because others did not want federal. They didn't even ask for it, although the Banyora and Batoro went there. In fact, I remember the only few people who raised the federal issue were Mbare people. They said they wanted federal. And yet Mbare didn't have a king. When we inquired into the question, they were saying, look here, we have our coffee. We do our coffee, and in the end, the nation takes it, we don't gain out of our coffee. Therefore, we want to be federal so that we can manage our coffee for ourselves. And that's how we came with the whole idea of decentralization, the real, genuine, good decentralization. We said, okay, people want to be a nation, but at the same time, they want to remain with some powers also to manage their economy and contribute to the national economy through their own rules and regulations as they manage the resources which they were gifted with. So that's when we said now. You see, we were wise people. We said now, federal Uganda, no. You can't have a federal because you cannot negate your kingdom, but you can't be federal because you are not federating with what? With anybody. So Uganda people did not like that, although we proposed centralization. Good centralization, where the centralized governments, the local governments would have power, would have authority to manage their own things, which actually never happened. Right of decentralization, but it is not there. And then another thing which I want to clear here in the new constitution, which people have been misunderstanding, was that we found the Obote constitution was centralized. It had centralized all the power into the president. But when we are making a constitution, we said no. The president cannot have centralized powers. He will be a dictator. And so what do? We said at the same time, the president is the one answerable for anything that happens to this country. He's the one to lead this country. And therefore, to lead this country, he should be given some powers also to decide on how he can lead this country. And so we said, okay, since he needs these powers, let us give him powers, but he should not exercise these powers alone. And that's why we said that the president will have powers to appoint the people he will work with. Ministers, the judiciary, the what, all those people. But he should nominate and subject his nominations to the parliament, because the parliament is the voice and representative of Ugandans. Remember, Article number 1 says power belongs to the people, who will exercise it in accordance with this constitution by electing their representatives. So we wanted the people to remain in the determination of president's decisions. And so we said, let him nominate the people he wants and subjects them to the parliament. And the parliament, which represents the people, would be the one to have the final say as to whether the president will work with such and such a person. It will be reduced into nothing the way it is. And I say it, I know you would fear saying that, but I wish you could say it by not wasting my time. We didn't know that the parliament would be constituted by greedy, center-powered and greedy people of no values and ethics, and therefore would just be transacting with the president on what should be done. We thought we were getting a transformational parliament which was prepared basing on the good new constitution to transform this nation on the basis of this popularly and participatory made wonderful foundation of Uganda. We didn't know. We didn't know that the president would be so greedy for power and would be buying people right and left. And so, before going into all that, we are being accused for giving President Museveni too much powers. I want to tell all Ugandans listening to me, and you people, send my voice there. President Museveni does not have the powers he uses. President Museveni abuses power. He abuses power by using money, by using intimidation, the gun and everything, to secure the powers which he doesn't have. And so the blame in this country should be not put on the constitution makers, but should be put on the greedy president and the greedy parliamentarians, greedy self-centered and power-oriented political leaders that they have, who destroyed and undermined the foundation, a strong foundation, very completely separate and different from all those other which were built on the sand. It is so unfortunate that after was it 20 years of Museveni's leadership, because he first led us, I think, for 7 years during NRC, and then got 10 years within the constitution, and after those 17 years, he went and murdered our constitution. He put a huge dent. You know, when you go with all the, I don't know, grader, he got a grader and what do you call it? The grader, the other one which destroys, it called the grader. The one that abolishes houses. The machine which comes and abolishes the houses. He came with that machine in Chankwanzi in 2003 and removed the term limit, the concern of Ugandans, the best and strongest stone in that constitution. He removed it, and from that time, Uganda went slowly back to no foundation, because every critical stone, President Museveni with his greedy politicians have come and dug it off and left a shaky, flimsy, whatever stones and sand that is remaining. If you young people, you don't know, I am known and I'm on record that after those 17 years, I stood up firm and strong because I knew what Ugandans wanted and opposed in his face the removal of that strong stone, the term limit, the presidential term limit. And when I removed it, when I refused, together with Honorable Chikeire, with Honorable Mugisha Muntu, with Honorable Bidansari, we were 4 in Chankwanzi: Matembe, Chikeire, Muntu, Bidansari. We opposed him, but we were few. And other Ugandans, the Kategayas, the whatever, and the members of NRC we are ready to oppose him. They were opposing him until he crafted corruption. He came with money. We can never forget. 5 million, imagine 5 million shillings. He bought the members of NRC and they went into parliament. He bought the members of parliament of the sixth, of the seventh parliament. And we, 54 of us, stood against him. He chased us away. As you can see for you, it is 17 years now since I left parliament. You don't know why I left, but I was able, with courage and confidence given to me by Ugandans who enabled me to make this constitution, to tell him in his face that what he was doing was wrong. Again, destroying a foundation made on the real rock. I don't know right now. I hear him talking of a new constitution. I'm not saying, hear me clearly, I'm not saying that constitutions are not amended. No, they are amended. When you put it into practice and you see how it works, you can amend depending on what challenges it has faced for the good of the nation and the people, not for the interest of a person or individual. And even when you are amending, you don't amend the strong. You know, when you are building, yes, they are strong pillar foundation. You don't remove those. So he said the Sempebwa Review Commission and Mr. Sempebwa, my professor, the great man of integrity, highly professional and knowledgeable, was with me on that commission of Odochi. He now became the chairperson. And the reason why that constitution was reviewed was purely to remove the term limit. The whole thing was based on removing the term limit. And that Professor Sempebwa, the chairperson of the commission, and I remember the late Samuel Wori was a member, they gave minority reports. You can imagine a chairperson who gives a minority report to his commission which he chairs, because he was not agreeing with that. And from then, the rest is history. Eventually, it was the CA delegates. They said, okay, we have put a term limit. But if we elect a president really who is already 70 years, and then after 5 years, 75, should we really continue with that president? Ugandans have many people. By that time we are electing, discussing the constitution, we were like we are born again. We were like, looking at Uganda. We are like concerned with Uganda's matters and how it is to move forward. People loved Uganda by then. We were seeing where we are going, and therefore we said, 75 years, somebody has done his job or her job. Let us go down and see other people. Let him retire even when he has served 75 years, he reached 75 years. That was the age limit. 2 concrete safe nets being put there secure Uganda in terms of peaceful handover of power. But because of Museveni's greed, you saw what happened during that time when Kyagulanyi was beaten, when this Namboze was named, when all these suffered, because the president wanted to stay in power. I understand. I want you to say it out there, by the way. I don't know whether you have heard it. I understand that, no, as Kahindo Tafire went to Shema in his constituency and mobilized the constituency of young people, and they have already written, I think, a petition for the return of President Museveni come 2026. And today, I heard that Mao, I haven't got the news yet clearly, that Mao has said that the president will come back 2026 and he will not come back on 2032. But if this is the situation, if this is you people, you are laughing, me, I'm crying. I'm crying. And this is in the midst of a shutdown to all Ugandans. Shut down. Recently, I wish these things could be put there, but you are lying. Recently, I was talking to elderly Anthony Butere. Anthony Butere, Honorable Anthony Butere, was a member of the NRC. That time, when our constitution was the 10-point program. 10-point program was the constitution. We built Uganda during the NRC, those 7 years. We built it actually on, were they 7 years? They were 10, because they were, yeah, they were 1986 to 1996. Yes, because the parliament elected in accordance with the new constitution was elected in 1996. The assembly took 1.5 years. So the whole constitution was made within 5.5 years. So those 10 years of Museveni's rule with NRC, our major constitution was actually 10-point program. Everything you debated, so is it promoting 10-point program? Eventually, when things went wrong and they continued to stay, they enlarged the 10-point program. I think they made them 15. Now, Anthony Butere, every time he would stand in parliament, he would say, 10-point program, pulling out the booklet and reading it for us. Now, recently, I met him on a senior citizens, function. And I asked him, hey, Anthony Butere, what happened to our 10-point program? He said, Honorable, you remember they became 15. I said, yes. And since then, he said, now, recently, the 16th one has been added silently. I said, which one is that? He said, be silent, shut up, to Ugandans. That the 16-point program, in other words, the central part of the constitution of Uganda now as we talk, is silent. Aren't you all silent? Silent. And you can imagine that we Ugandans who belong to Uganda, to whom Uganda belongs, we should be silent, and only Museveni and his clan and his family should be the people to determine and do whatever they want to do for us in this country. And I hear Mao is talking of another constitutional review. And in this one, they are going to prepare how the parliamentary elections are going to be rigged. They are going to prepare how I don't know, how the parliament will be the one to elect the president. They are going to continue, remove whatever has been remaining, the huge cornerstones which have been remaining are going to be removed. And I can assure you, after removing them, they will take it to parliament, and those quacks, those greedy members of parliament who are not driven by human service, who are driven by self-centeredness and power-orientedness, will just pass it. Me, I'm saying, I am a Christian who believes in God. And I believe that God is in control. He's the one who created these nations. He created the heaven and the earth. And he rules. And nobody can thwart his plan. They can go, they can queer, they can plan their wickedness and whatever they do. But wickedness will not prevail. At least there will be remnants on Mount Zion in this country who will resist, and one day God will hear us and we shall overcome. And therefore, fellow Ugandans, don't give up. Don't give up. Winners do not quit. Persevere with our God. We shall one day have a Uganda which can be built on the firm foundation and remain there. As for now, I want to apologize to the young people who have come after us. I joined the NRM government when I was 33 years. In other words, I was a youth. I quit having served 20 years. I am here in my house crying for Uganda. Because when I embraced the leadership, when I ran and took up the mantles of leadership right from LC1, I had believed that never again would Uganda cry in wars. Never again would Uganda have to hand over power by force and by military. Never again, because it had been taken over by clearly headed, minded, educated people who loved people, who knew what they wanted, who were educated, who are not uneducated, like those whom they were removing. I sit here with such a strong embarrassment by my own people, whom I had thought had the wisdom, the intelligence, the integrity, the values that they claimed to have. But my God will prevail. Therefore, that's why I end by saying, you young people, never trust. The Bible says, cursed is the man who trusts in man. Let them trust in their horses and their chariots. The word of God tells me. They trust in their horses and their chariots. We trust in the name of the Lord. They will be brought down and fall. We shall rise and stand firm to the glory of God and for the good of my country, Uganda. Okay, your question now, what you should know is that it is not about making a constitution. It is about constitutionalism. That is implementing the constitution that you make. As long as there is no honesty in implementing the constitution that you make, in taking the path of constitutionalism, we are wasting our money making constitutions. We don't even right now, by the way, need any constitutional review. No. We did a basic constitution which was very strong. What one needs now is to get maybe an expert of lawyers. You can put economists and whatever, and form a committee which would sit down, without going to traverse Uganda, sit down and have a review and look at the original constitution which we made and say, since then is how many years? 26 years or something? 27 years. Since 27 years, what can still work for us in this constitution? Just that. You just do that and then bring it to Parliament and Parliament passes it. But because the amendment, the review is about entrenchment of self-centeredness, that's why they want to bring now another constitutional review. It's all about self-centeredness. It has nothing to do with people-centeredness. Nothing. You Ugandans, if you don't arise, if you are to die, die. This nation will remain without being a nation. It will just be a shake. I don't know what to call it. Because you can imagine, do you see this house which is here where I live? This house is more than I personally have lived. If I have personally, I have lived in this house for more than, I think, for more than 40 years. I found it like this, more than 40 years. And it was built like, now it is like 80 years. This house is like 80 years or you can call it 70 years, I don't know. But I have never, we can, constitutional review should be, if you have built a house, should be about windows, check on the windows, check on the on the walls, repaint it and that kind of thing. But not going and digging the cornerstone and throwing it down there. Hmm? Now you people, what I'm asking you, I'm sure you have really listened. I don't know how many people you have listened to that have given you information so clear and so educative to Ugandans that I have given you. You may not find many. And that's why I'm asking you that when you come to me here, when you go to edit, go and pick that information, which is for the benefit of Uganda as we celebrate 60 years of the so-called independence. Entrenchment of human rights. Now we are shut down and silent. Now what constitution? The human rights, the issue of human rights was very, very central to the making of the constitution. Because a constitution, call it a foundation of the house is about people. You don't build a house to be just a house. You build a house for the people. And therefore, the constitution was meant to be for the people. And in other words, you are promoting the interests and rights of these very people who are going to live in this Uganda. And that's why is it chapter 4 was very, very, very central. And that's why actually our human rights were extended to the even previously marginalized categories of people, like women, like the disabled, like the vulnerable, the young. We focused on everybody to have equal rights and enjoy those rights as declared in the in the human rights charter, international, whatever, whatever. But as we talk now, as we talk, there are no human rights in Uganda. Almost none. Because if there is no human rights to education, because you can't educate yourself, there is no human rights to employment, we are exporting labor. Imagine slavery. At least when they colonized us or when they came and made us into slave, we were unwilling. But in Uganda, we are willing to sell ourselves out as slaves. So no freedom of employment, no freedom of work, no freedom of economy, no freedom, let alone speech. Sure, shut up. And you are not supposed to hear, by the way. Also shut ears, because if you hear what is wrong, they look at the phone and they catching your phones. You put your phone on your ear, they are there seeing you or noting you, hearing, they arrest you because you are hearing things which they were not supposed to hear. For me, what is the total shutdown and close down of Ugandan people. You were talking of shutdown or close down because of COVID. We are now militarily and politically closed down and shut down. And that's why many things are happening. Many, many bad things are happening because even when they happen, you cannot go out and talk. You can imagine these simple women demonstrating against their husbands who do not sustain and maintain them. Eh? And you get a tear gas. The other day I had gone to Chambogo to address these professors and academicians in Chambogo on the importance of the importance of translating research, which they do, into policy and legislation formulation and implementation. And when I was there, we were still debating and talking. We had tear gas, boo, boo. Some people started falling down under the desks. What is happening? They said, you know what? That is tear gas. We said, why? He said there was football in the football match. Imagine the football match at Chambogo. You people, the football match at Chambogo involving the Makerere and Chambogo and Nakawa students. Because one group defeated the other, tear gas. Now what is this? And me, my wonder is, wait, Ugandans, but have you seen me shut down? Have you? You are the one who is going to shut me down if you don't release these things I'm telling you. But otherwise, have you seen me shut down? And yet I'm not dead. And I'm not lacking in the economy. Do you see me poor? Poor is a state of the soul and the mind. And that's what Ugandans have been made to be. And me, I'm calling upon Ugandans. Refocus and redirect your mind. Take them off from Seven and his clan and direct them to God and pray. And what he tells you, do. Then we shall overcome.